This episode is brought to you by Muntins Malts, a company that is passionate about providing premium malts to brewers worldwide. For over a century, Muntins has been a leading supplier of brewing and distilling malts, offering the finest British malted barley on the market. You can experience the difference Muntins offers by joining a recipe receiving tier of our Trub Club, because every kit that ships out now includes premium Muntins malt. You know, we've known the Muntins crew for a long time, and I can tell you, friend, you're going to love brewing with their grains. Ask your local supply shop to carry Muntins malts, or homebrewers can join our Trub Club at homebrewhappyhour.com/club, be a part of the community, and come brew with us. Thank you, Muntins, for supporting our efforts and homebrewers worldwide. Today's show is brought to you by Hopsdirect.com. Grown in the esteemed Yakima Valley on the Pewterball family farm, Hopsdirect.com offers the widest variety of hops available online at incredibly competitive pricing. It's simple. They grow hops, they sell hops, and they ship hops straight from their family-owned farm to your doorstep. Producing the highest quality hops is Hopsdirect.com's passion, and they're proud to be an independent grower in the craft beer industry. Go to Hopsdirect.com right now and get what you need to make your brew day better. That's Hopsdirect.com. Today's show is brought to you by Imperial Yeast. You hear us gushing over Imperial Yeast all the time, and that's because their yeast performs for us in every batch that we brew. Imperial Yeast is adored by commercial breweries and home brewers alike. Their pitch-right pouches are jam-packed with over 200 billion fresh yeast cells, guaranteed to deliver flawless, fast fermentations every time. Imperial Yeast strains are grown by a team of pro brewers and home brewers who live to help other brewers learn more and ferment better. Join any recipe receiving tier of our Trub Club and get a free upgrade to premium Imperial Yeast with every recipe kit that ships out to you. Learn more at homebrewhappyhour.com/club and come brew with us.
Entertaining shows with content that spreads information and sparks discourse throughout the community. This is the Pearl Media Network.
Catching up with Kenny Highman, a.k.a. the Brewer of Seville. This is Homebrew Happy Hour, episode 339. I hate this new setup. I gotta change something. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. This is the show where we supply the answers to your homebrewing questions and discuss all things related to craft beer. If you have a question you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, go to homebrewhappyhour.com, click on that submit a question link at the top of the page, or now you can call or text, but if you call and leave a voicemail to our hotline, 325-305-6107, you get yourself a $25 gift card courtesy of the absent Mr. Todd Burns. I'm one of your hosts, Joshua Stubing. Today is another special homebrewer showcase, catching up with the good buddy episode that we're doing because I'm actually on vacation right now while y'all are consuming this, and I appreciate your time. He is fellow homebrewer and the host of Pint Talking. It's my buddy Kenny Highman, a.k.a. the Brewer of Seville. Kenny, my friend, how are you doing?
Josh, what's going on, man? It is a privilege and an honor to be back on for the third time.
It is a privilege and an honor. But your first two appearances were within like a calendar year, and then we took off 2 years from seeing each other.
I can tell you exactly when the first two were, because there were two very major events that happened in life for me. One was around February of 2019, because shortly after that my mom passed away, and then my dad passed away the same year.
Yeah.
So I remember that. I actually was going to Disney World, listening to our interview because it released the same day that I was flying down there. And then the second time was I drove to you guys, and then I brought the pandemic, and the world shut down when I got home.
Wait a minute. What's going to happen now that we're back together on the same podcast?
This place is burning.
That's the episode I got one of our 1-star reviews because I made some. It was in the listen, to my credit, or to my defense, it was early on in COVID. I didn't realize how bad it could have been. I made some lighthearted joke about using promo code COVID and saving 20% off or something. It was stupid. It was stupid. I get it. It was stupid. But some guy, Joe, I forget his last name, and I only found out Joe because he also emailed Todd like he was going to get me fired. He was like, your podcast, that sniveling, snot-nosed Joshua thinks he's funny, and this is why he's not. And I replied real cordially to him, like, shut up, fight me. No, I didn't. I said, I'm sorry that you feel this way. I say dumb things every day. You should talk to my wife. Y'all can make a support group. But why you
it's
trying
all right. The dude was probably from California anyways.
No, he was a New England guy. He was a New England guy. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I stalked him on Facebook and everything. No, I replied to him and I was like, if you want to talk more about this and let me know, because like he wrote, like I said, a really scathing email went to the help inbox, which I happened to check, but he thought it was going to my boss, and I showed Todd. I'm not hiding anything, boss. I know you're watching this. He remembers because I showed Todd my reply, and he goes, you gave it more thought than you had to. I'm not going to fire you, right? I go, no, I didn't know. That's why I put so much thought. I never know with you, man.
Well, and to be fair, that the day that we did that podcast was, I believe, like a Thursday or something. And then I got home on a Sunday, and during my trip back home, I had my Airbnb canceled in Arkansas, which is fine because who really wants to hang out in Arkansas anyways? And then I'm isolating your audience immediately.
Yeah, I'm just thinking I got to edit at the 6 minute mark. I got to edit at the.
No, so then I got home in my state of Ohio, and I think that the rest of the world pretty much, or at least the rest of the United States, closed down pretty much the next Monday, the following day.
We recorded that right before it actually hit the fan. Yeah.
Yeah. And we didn't really know that.
Had no idea.
We had no idea you made a lighthearted comment.
Yeah. But also to my defense, I'm a child of the internet. And so I had seen all this stuff in like November, December. Ask Todd. He was making fun of me in December. We bought 2 or 3 boxes of N95s from Home Depot. We ended up distributing them to people like our employees and stuff. Our employees, like I work for Todd, not with Todd. His employees, my coworkers. But because I told him, I was like, dude, it's starting to spread over there, and we have no idea about what this virus is going to be. We should probably get some masks. And not to go too deep dive, but it was common knowledge at one point that certain masks just didn't help with viral transmission, blah, blah, blah. And so I was like, we got to get some N95s. And it was before they not just were out of stock, but also the price increase. You remember from March or April of 2020 till basically mid 2021, if you could find them, they were upcharged by thousands of %. Like it was ridiculous. So I did tell Todd that. I was like, you should thank me. I made sure that we were covered. And unfortunately, we never actually needed to use them. I'm a hermit. I just didn't leave my house. But anyways.
I did not get sick until almost 3 years after it.
I got COVID August of 2021. And I was a real big baby for about 48 hours. And then when I realized, like, okay, I'm probably going to get through this, I acted like it was nothing. That's what I do when I get sick, though.
Mine hit on my 44th birthday. Actually, it was last September.
Yeah. So. If our coming back together on an episode spawns some new world virus, I apologize, world. I apologize for whatever this episode spawns. Or, I used to joke and morbidly joking, and I'll get us on track for the show soon, I promise. We used to vacation to Disney a lot. You're talking about driving to Disney. One trip we were going to Disney, it was a cruise the first time. And my grandfather died on my mom's side. And okay. And then booked a trip with my wife for Disney, and my grandmother on my mom's side died. And then fast forward a few years and booked a trip to Disney. It was a New Year's trip. No, it was to Disney. That's right. And my grandmother died on my dad's side. And then I forget where we booked, but it was some ongoing thing but when my grandfather eventually died, it was like, I can't vacation without losing a grandparent. What is going on with that?
Either it was Disney or you guys built your house on an Indian burial ground.
I think our last house was on an Indian burial ground. It was But anyways, let me get us back on topic.
All
Before we actually get into the show, and I do appreciate your time, let me do some housekeeping stuff. If you listened last week, friends, you'll know the big announcement that for Trub Club this month, it's on the screen. Kenny, sorry you can't see it, but everyone at youtube.com/homebrew happy hour can. It's the Dusseldorf Altstadt Alt Beer. Delicious recipe by James Carlson with some tweaking done by our friend and the author of the Alt Beer book, Mr. Horst Dornbusch. I always keep this reference right here so I can look like I'm literate. And so, up on the screen, y'all can see. Oh, and I'm showing the book, and people weren't even seeing it. This book right here, friends. Sorry about that. The Alt Beer book. It's worth buying. I think it was like $10, maybe 15. Either way, thank you to our sponsors, Muntons, Hopstretz, and Imperial Yeast for providing premium ingredients for our recipes. You can join at patreon.com/homebrew happy hour. Get this shipped to you. Come brew with us. It's fun. And the timing's great because, boom, on the screen, tentatively being called the Alt Beer Challenge 2023. October the 19th through the 21st, we will be judging your alt beer. We will have registration available at a domain I'm trying to buy right now, very soon. When I get back from vacation, all that will be stored away. Y'all can register. Again, Todd wants to cap it at 40, like we did this last Kolsch Cup, when we actually took like 42, but then only like 35 got their beer to us. But we're going to cap it at either 40 or 50, and because we're going to do an extra day, because last time with Kolsch Cup, I was fine. I think we were all fine. Todd was worried because he wasn't drinking 1 to 2 ounce increments. He was drinking 4 to 5, and you times that by 20 on one day, and by the last beer, like, this beer's good. This beer's pretty good. So we are going to have details available, but yes, if you go to patreon.com/homebrew happy hour, again, join the Trub Club at a recipe receiving level, get this delicious alt beer shipped out to you, and stay tuned for more information about the Alt Beer Challenge. I have been talking with my German buddy Hannes, and he is trying to come up with the name. We are trying to collectively come up with a German name for this competition. So when all that's done, hopefully by the time I get back from the beach, we'll have more details. But yeah, let's segue into beer brewing and all that instead of COVID and world disaster. My friend,
Sure.
Have you ever brewed an alt beer?
I have not, and I probably will not. So
Why? What's your beef with alt?
It's a decent beer. It's not a favorite of mine like you guys. And I know that to brew a good one, there's a lot of work involved with it, and I really just don't have that kind of time to
I don't blame you. James agrees. He calls it the most finicky beer to perfect because it's like, I mean, if you want to get to the nitty gritty and do like the step mashing and decoction and all of that to make it super authentic, that's what a lot of people feel like they have to do. You know, you're right. It's not. I love Kolsch for a number of reasons, and one of them being it's easy. It is easy. Like, you brew Kolsch. I actually haven't opened yours yet. I haven't tried it. Your scorecard's in the mail because you did enter the Kolsch Cup.
I did.
I think you'll be happy with your scores. A lot of people, I was telling the winner, George Colson, on last week's episode, a lot of people who didn't make the top 10 will realize that they were on the bubble. Like, they were like, there was a lot of scores that were just right out of it because there was maybe 1 or 2 bad Kolsch's, and I didn't try yours during the competition. I took your second can home, and it's actually in my fridge. I haven't gotten to opening it yet because I took a bunch of Kolsch. Todd made me.
Well, there's so I think I might have discovered a problem in my brewing or at least my fermentation setup. And I know I'm kind of getting ahead, putting the cart before the horse. You haven't asked about my brewing setup.
No. But let's segue. You did Kolsch Cup. You didn't make it for the second day. What do you think went wrong?
Well, so I basically my fermenters are I have 2 CF5s from Spike. I have the glycol system. I have it's essentially I have a spawning valve from Spike that I forget what it's called, but I think it's a spawning valve. So I brewed that under pressure, or fermented it under pressure. I'm sorry, and everything was going great. And then it's self carbonating while it's pressure fermenting. And then at the end, I add a carb stone to the front of the fermenter, and I carb it from there also. So I get it up to 10, 12 psi. On that particular beer, I think I left it in an extra week with some biofine in it. I chilled it down to 36. I thought it was going to be fine. And then after I sent it to you guys, I started to taste a little bit of an off flavor too that I couldn't quite put my finger on. Well, my buddy was here. We were doing podcasts last night. We were recording some. I wanted him to try this hazy IPA that I once made that is now a West Coast IPA with no hops. So it tastes just like plain beer. And he's like, man, I can't figure out what's going on. So I took him down, showed him my setup. I showed him the part where I add the carb stone, and he goes, "Are you purging that before you open the valve?" And I said, "No, I dip it in the sanitizer, put it on, and then I just open the valve and start shooting CO2." He goes, "That whole chamber's full of oxygen.
Right.
You're oxygenating the beer right there, or oxidizing actually." And then it made sense. So the next time I do it, he had told me, so I don't know, on a TC clamp, you can get the rubber O-rings, or you can get like those, I think they're nylon or they're the hard plastic ones, the O-rings. He said, using a hard plastic one, keep the valve closed, purge that cylinder with, purge the chamber of the carb stone with CO2, crack the actual what do they call it, the clamp, the TC clamp, crack it and let it start to bleed for about 30 seconds to a minute, and then shut it again, and that'll be full, that'll chamber will be full of CO2.
Yeah.
Then crack the valve and start force carbing it through that. Yeah. So I'm going to try that the next time. I think that's the last couple times I've done this where I've done closed transfers. I'm like, there's no possible way oxygen got into this beer because it's completely closed. But you don't think of little things like that, like your carb stone, or even when you're dry hopping, maybe you crack like I have a port on the top of that CF7 or 5, and I throw hops down there. But what I do is I usually send CO2 through that carb stone. But again, when I didn't purge it, I'm also blasting oxygen straight into the beer.
Interesting. Yeah. It's funny, and I'm using that word wrong, like I use most words wrong. It's funny how we make these upgrades and stuff for mainstreaming or streamlining rather our process. You want the carb stone in there because you want to, it's basically now a bright tank at that point, and you could serve from it. I mean, when you keg, it's going to be ready to go. You're not going to have to add, or you're not going to have to force carb, do the rock and all that when it gets to keg. You're doing that to streamline your process. But when we streamline, sometimes it adds another variable of stuff that can go wrong, right?
Yeah. And I mean, there's just so many things that like, they're just, some might consider a minutia, but they really do make a huge difference. Like, who would have thought that little carb stone that maybe had a couple of inches of square inches inside there of space would actually be enough oxygen that it could just destroy your beer.
And beer that you worked hard on, and beer that you everything else went good. You hit your mash temps right, you hit your fermentation temps, and you're like, what is going on? See, I had assumed, because I assumed it had to be maybe in the canning, but this carb stone thing you're talking about makes more sense.
And so the canning, I entered your contest a couple years ago when you did the first one, and you judged it, and you said that it had some sort of oxygenation or oxidation in it, and I thought, well, I didn't purge the can with CO2 like some people do when they fill crawlers at a brewery. So this year, when I sent that in, I purged the hell out of those cans, like I really did. I mean, I put them in a tube for like 20 seconds, just filling that can with CO2 before I filled it with beer. Yeah. So not that that's going to reduce the dissolved oxygen and all that stuff that's in there. I mean, it's not a pro setup. It's going to get some oxygen, but it's, and so, it's, that certainly could have had an effect too, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, getting the cart before the horse. Let me rewind a little. For people who haven't seen your episodes, and actually, I was looking it up. Your episodes are so old. It was your old logo. It was your it was your original logo, not the beautiful one that's like looks like you. The last one was a characterization of you, which is funny because that's kind of what you work for a company that does that. Was it one of your artists who actually did that first logo?
So both logos have been done by two different artists. Yeah, the first logo was done by a girl out of New Jersey, and then the one I currently have, it was done by a guy that I work with in my office.
Yeah, you're fortunate to work with talented artists and like and get the work done. But either way, that's how old those are. So people who may just be knowing you for the first time, let's talk about, you've been brewing, I think now 6 years, 7 years. How long have you been brewing?
Yeah, 2017 I started home brewing.
Right. So on just shy of going on 7 years, so 6 years rather. Around you've hit the 6 year mark. You're currently brewing 5-gallon batches. And what's your hot side? What's your hot side look like? You talked about having a couple of CF5s from Spike on the fermentation side. What's your hot side brew day side look like?
So I have 2 grain fathers. I bought them from you guys back in the day when you sold.
When we used to sell them.
Yeah. I bought one of them from you, and something happened with the control panel, and I contacted you guys, and you reached out, and you basically sent me a whole new system because it was easier that way. And I'm sure Grainfather probably reimbursed you guys for that.
That's a Todd question. I don't know. I just spend his money, dude.
Well, and this was Joe that I dealt with back then.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, they're just saying don't use that other one. And I'm like, okay, wink, wink. Yeah, I'm gonna throw that away, Joe. So now I have the one that had a bad, like the control panel was burning up a little bit. That one I use for the hot liquor tank, or I'm sorry, for the sparge tank. The other one I use as the mash tun
and boil kettle.
Yeah. So I built a cart. The sparge tank is up a level, and then it's on wheels, and I do it in my basement. So yeah, and I started off with a Robo Brew, but that one burnt up kind of quickly. So
well, I was going to say, you've always, I mean, since being a home brewer, you've only known electric brewing, right?
Well, no, I did start off when I first started. It was I did extract batches in 2017, and I had an Edel metal burner, and I had a really nice anvil kettle. And I would do the boils outside. I wanted to brew inside. Ohio has only got good weather for about 6 months, if that. And I wanted to brew in the wintertime. So that's when I switched over. And when I switched over, that's when I started doing all grain versus extract.
Would you say the biggest change for your brew day and your beer, subsequently the batches that you're making, was electric brewing the biggest game changer for you, or was fermentation side upgrades the biggest game changer for making consistently good beer?
I think that the fermentation side, for me, just being able to regulate temperature was a huge game changer. When I bought that glycol chiller in 2019, which I didn't get till 2020 because I bought it through a Kickstarter from Craft a Brew. That was huge, man. Because when you're using 2-liter bottles that are frozen and you're putting them in a cooler and you're changing them out every 8 hours, you still can only get that temp down to about 46, 44 degrees, somewhere in that area. I have glycol. I can get it to 36. That's what my system will take it down to. And that really is a game changer, especially if you want to start making lagers.
Yeah. The MacGyver setup that you just described is similar to how James is like, you can do it. Look, I put it in the tub and I just replace the ice packs, 3 times a day. And I do this and this and this. I'm like, oh my God, that sounds terrible. And that sounds miserable. How long were you doing that for before you got that?
I think so. 2018, I switched over to all grain. So it was about a year, and then whatever homebrew con came around. So maybe a year and a half I was doing that. And then I was at the homebrew con and bought that glycol chiller. So it was just, it really is a game changer. Like, it's so different, man. It is so different. It's so nice to do. if you want to do a lager and you're going to do the diacetyl rest and you can drop it down a couple degrees a day and all you got to do is push a button. It's it's so much better.
You having the secondary unit is kind of how I do it. So I use a Grainfather G40 because I'm doing 10-gallon batches. And
Sure.
and I absolutely love Grainfather. I'm preaching to the choir, but just telling people at home, phenomenal machine if you're looking to brew consistently good beer and you don't have a big footprint or you don't want to take up a big footprint. They have the bells and whistles that it's not brewing for you. It's not automated. It's just holding your hand through the process. So dummies like me don't forget, hey, coming up right now is time to, get your sparge water ready. Is your sparge water ready? You got 40 minutes till your sparge water needs to be ready. I'm like, oh crap, I better get my sparge water ready. And I use a mash and boil, one of the first, before they had a pump. I mean, back in the day when it was like $2.49 for, it's a big tea kettle, but I use that elevated for my sparge water, and it's the best setup ever for a 10-gallon batch because it just makes it easy. The best setup, and here's my infomercial. People think I'm just a salesman, but I swear, guys, I'm making room in my garage now for a Brautag 3-vessel Herms because that is the best way to brew, especially if you're getting into a swap like I am with Todd and James. 15-gallon batches. When I only do the 10-gallon, they get mad because I only have an extra keg for. It's always Todd. I was going to say sometimes James. No, it's always Todd. Todd gets first dibs. He's like the ancient Mayan god we have to make sacrifices to every now and then. And so he always gets and so poor James is left out. Like if I brew a really good batch of kolsch, I'm like, James, this kolsch is the best. And Todd's like, yeah, it's so good. Poor James is over there too nice to say anything. He's like, yeah, must be nice. Must be nice for y'all have that on draft. I'm like, it is, James. Yeah, it is really nice. Not realizing, but the Herms is obviously my ideal setup. But for you've been brewing 5-gallon batches since I've known you, and I've known you since you bought that Grainfather, basically. Like we met shortly after that. You had reached out, had you on the show. We met. Was that HomebrewCon 2018 or 2019?
2019 in Providence.
Okay, yeah. So we that was when we first met in person. But I think
we had been talking about it probably 6 months before that. I think I actually had a problem with something I bought from you guys, and I reached out to you, and
I ended up being the one to help you. Yeah.
And I was listening to your show before that too. So like,
you didn't mention that.
Yeah, no, I had been listening. I don't know that I've listened to every single episode, but I think that I've listened to probably at least 250 or 60 of them that you guys have. Oh, you on 330?
This is 339, man. You are
probably closer to 300 that I've listened to then.
Yeah, I've listened to every one of them. Okay, only because I'm on them, and I it's a shtick. I don't edit in the sense like I go through and take out things I probably should, but I do end up listening to every episode because. You do a podcast, and we'll get to your show here very shortly. We'll segue to all that, but that you can't just, unless it went 100% absolute perfect, there's still some processing you have to do, which then has you listening to the show anyway. Like the audio you and I are capturing right now, because we have decent equipment, sounds great, sure, but the magic of post-production just adds that radio flair to it. And yours is an audio only one, so you listen to the raw that you record and you listen to the post processed version, it's night and day. So we edit the show, but anyway, but yeah, you've always brewed 5 gallons as long as I know you. Is there any do you not have a desire to bump it up to 10, 15, half barrel, whatever kind of?
No, I honestly, like, I wish I could brew more than I do. I don't get to brew that often anymore. I mean, doing a podcast that I actually do 2 different shows, it's plus a full-time job, and I have dogs, and I have to take care of my house and stuff. It's busy. Like I probably get to brew 8 to 10 times a year now at this point.
Womp womp. I'm saying that me and my dad brew like 4 times a year. I like together. With Todd, if I count all the brew days I've done by myself, with my pop and with Todd, I probably brew 10 to 12 a year. Todd's brewing, like 30 a year, like on average.
I mean, I'm real jealous of the amount, like when I listen to your show and he talks about how much beer he's got on tap and how often he's brewing. I'm like, man, I would love to be able to do that, but I can't squeeze. I have to schedule my brew days like weeks in advance to make sure I got time to do it.
You're an average adult, my friend. That's what we did. Like Todd benefits from being Todd. That's what it is.
Right.
He's like, I'm going to start this company and I'm going to do what I want to do. And it's like, oh, that's what you have to do to brew that much. Okay. I tried that once. I was like, Todd, I'm going to start my company. I'm going to do what I want. And then I came begging for a full-time job like 3 years later. You're like, please hire me back. I'm sorry.
But I will tell you though, that only brewing 8 or 10 times a year, you become more selective on what you're brewing. And like, you also, like when I brew those 8 times a year, I really focus on what I'm brewing. I don't drink while I brew or anything like that. Like I want to brew good beer that I know, right? I used to get smashed when I started, but now I don't even hardly drink it. Like I will not drink it all while I'm brewing. And then once I'm done cleaning up, then maybe,
maybe. Yeah. The asterisks of I don't drink. You're the Barry Bonds right now of you're like, I don't drink when I brew, asterisk mark. Why? No, I don't drink a lot. I don't drink a lot. I have a little.
Well, it's funny, you got me recording this morning a podcast about beer, and I usually would be drinking beer while I'm doing any podcasting, and now I've got a cup of coffee.
Yeah, me too. Well, no, I actually have my electrolyte drink. I went for a run. That's how early this is. I went for an early morning run drinking electrolytes. What has happened to me? Let's talk about your draft side, because you're brewing 8 to 10 times. I don't know if we've ever discussed the draft side of your setup. Are you're a 2-faucet kegerator, or what? How many taps do you have, and how many beers do you have?
So I actually have 6 taps.
No, shut up.
Yeah, I do. So I started off with a kegerator, like just a regular house refrigerator that I bought on Craigslist. And the whole process of getting that out of this dude's house in Akron, Ohio was a nightmare. He made it sound like it was in his garage, but it was actually in his basement. We had to remove doors and handrails, and like it was just a nightmare. But it was a 2-faucet system. And I was really getting into the home brewing at that point. I think it was 18 or 19, something like that. And I added 2 more. So I could put 4 5-gallon kegs in. Then later on, I was like, I think I could squeeze 2 2.5s in here. So I could get 6 kegs. They'd be a total of 20 gallons or 25 gallons, because I could only do half kegs in the middle of the fridge. So I have 4 flow control faucets. They're not CM Becker, so I won't tell you who they are, but I know, right? I'm a tight ass. And then I do have 2 CM Becker creamer faucets.
I know you have some CMB faucets. I remember when you got those.
Yeah, I do have 2 of those. They're not flow control, but I usually use those with my stouts. Because I like or a cream ale or something where I like to give it a little bit of creamy head on it. I do like those creamer faucets.
Yeah, they're great. It's funny. We did our session. You weren't at HomebrewCon this year, and I'll get your thoughts on HomebrewCon future later, because we've talked about it in DMs before. But we did our talk, and we talked. Obviously, it was a presentation about draft systems, right? And so we talked about flow control, and obviously a big chunk of it for CMB, and then a tiny little part for some other competitors. And at the end of the show, people would ask questions, and we talked about CMB disconnects too. And they'd be like, I noticed you didn't mention like duotite. What are your thoughts? And James is me like, they suck. They're the worst. No, he didn't say it like that, but we had to eloquently, explain like, oh, we couldn't deep dive because this is a surface level thing. They only gave us an hour, blah, blah, blah. But like with the faucets, here's why we said this. And it was just, to me, it was funny because it's like, we wholeheartedly believe in the products, not just because we sell them, but we use them and all that. But when people ask us like about comparing it to a competitor, it's hard for me not to be petty and be like, because ours are better. That's why, Kenny. Quit being cheap and just get ours.
I know. I have listened to a lot of your episodes where people ask about the difference between the flow control at the nozzle or the flow control that's in line. And if I could justify the price, I would definitely replace all in line with your guys' stuff.
Yeah.
Because the faucet ones, they really, they essentially, they can slow down the speed in which to pour, but I don't know that they're doing anything other than that. You know what I mean?
They're not doing real restriction. That's the thing. Yeah. Which right now, Kenny, is a great time because financing. No, I'm kidding. I have no financing promos. I was trying to throw in something like, now's a great time because at checkingetcha.com, 12 months.
You have no idea how many times I've switched out the taps though. I've had those cheap like plastic tap heads that have like chrome plating on them or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And I've gone to another style that was they were stainless or whatever, but they weren't flow control. And then I went to flow. Like I've spent so much money on taps, it's ridiculous.
If you just would have started with some X1s, dude, I'm telling you, that's what my pop and I use. They're the NSF plastic, but they're flow control, real flow control. They're the best. I love them.
Yeah,
and that's I'll stop beating a dead horse about flow control and Sam Becker and the superiority of the product. Anyway, I had you on because, like I said, you've been doing a podcast now for your main podcast, Pint Talking. 100th episode just published yesterday or today?
Today, the day we're talking about.
Today, the day we're talking about. Right. It came up in my Pocket Cast, and I haven't listened to it yet. But your 100th episode. First off, congratulations on 100 episodes. Let's remind people, because it's been so long since we've had you on, and I'm not even quite sure. You may have just launched Pint Talking when I had you on a couple years ago.
Oh no, it was that year. So when I left you guys and came back home and we got quarantined to the house, I went online and I was like, man, I want to do something still with craft beer because we're not going to be able to go out to the breweries. So I bought a bunch of equipment and to start a podcast. And I was married at the time, and my ex-wife had said, "What do you know about podcasting?" I go, absolutely nothing. I know nothing. I'm going to learn about it. I'm going to try. And actually, you were one that I bounced a lot of things off of. Yeah. You helped me a lot throughout the whole process of getting up and running and telling me what equipment I should get and stuff. So
I was trying to sabotage you, and look, it worked out. Son of a gun!
I'm still here 3 years later.
You got great equipment. Son of a gun!
It's like brewing, dude. It's like home brewing. You start off with shitty equipment, and then you build up into this really good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Your whole setup's been great. So yeah, remind people, what is Pint Talking? What's the general format? And over the 100 episodes, like, what are some highlights for you of your main show? And then we'll talk about your new stuff. So
Pint Talking is a show that when I started off, it was ridiculously long. I did some 3-hour episodes. They were marathons. And it was very much modeled after the Brewing Network's session show. I love that show, and that's kind of what inspired me a little bit. So basically, I go around. At the time, I was doing Zoom interviews with breweries throughout Ohio, and we'd drink their beer and talk about it, and just kind of get into the stuff. And then once the world opened up again, I start going out, and I actually go to these breweries and sit down and interview them. I've since pared my show back to about 90 minutes. Actually, my 100th episode's only an hour, so it's a lot more listenable, I think, to do a 60 to 90 minute show. And I got a lot of feedback from people that are like, it's just too long. 3 hours.
It's a lot to commit. Long. I mean, even we're in a super niche, right? We do a podcast for people who do a very niche hobby of brewing beer. So how many people in the country brew beer and listen to podcasts? That's a super duper niche. And so getting their attention, like a lot of people, like Rogan is the standard. I don't listen to every road. I have to go, who's that guest on? That'll probably be interesting, because I don't always have 3 hours. If I'm not driving to the ranch or to headquarters, I don't have 3 hours in a row just to spare. It is a long time. And I'm sure your numbers and your feedback got incredibly more positive when you started cutting it back to 90 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned a super niche that we're in. I'm even in a more micro niche, because I'm or would it be macro? I guess it's because I'm doing Ohio craft breweries.
You're hyper local. Yeah.
Like I've had one brewery from out of Ohio on my show in 100 episodes, and that was a brewery in Oklahoma City that I stopped at on my way to visit you guys. So, the thing about my show is there's 440 breweries or 442 breweries in Ohio right now. I've visited a lot, but there's a lot in Cincinnati that's 3 hours away from me. Columbus is an hour and a half. Toledo's 2 hours. Youngstown's 2 hours. Cleveland's only 40 minutes, 30 minutes. So it's hard to get to all of them. I mean, I like to take a drive, but sometimes I don't want to take a 3-hour drive on a Saturday, do an interview and do a 3-hour drive back home. That's for sure. So I have to start thinking about how I'm going to either visit or get more of these breweries on if I got to do Zooms, which aren't that fun. I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to evolve that, because I've covered a lot of the close breweries that I
no, totally. But I think I even told you over time, because I think, your first iteration or view of doing the podcast was very broad of like craft beer, this or that. And I was like, dude, getting an audience is literally the hardest thing to do, and getting them to stay. I think your move to hyperlocal was the right one, because like how many podcasts are there focused on Ohio craft beer? It's you.
Yeah, I know of at least one more. That's my buddy does one in Cincinnati. He's very he's very well followed down there, and there's maybe a couple other ones, but I don't know if you get this a lot, but when I go out and do a show and I'll interview somebody, there's always somebody that's like, I was going to do a podcast. I've thought about it, and I'm like, well, have fun, because it's not as easy as people think.
So much work.
Like I think they think you're just going to pop a microphone up and you're just going to talk, but there's really like so much prep work that goes into it, as far as I don't script everything, but I certainly have an outline for everything. And then there's the post processing part, the editing, and you got to publish it, and you got to pre-publish it if you want to, like, you don't want to just wake up at 6 a.m. on a Friday and publish it. You want to do it beforehand. And it's tough, man. There's a lot of podcasts out there, and there's a lot of good ones, and there's a lot that are making tons of money, and that's not me. So
no. And you're saying the word "a lot" way too liberally. I don't know if a lot, like, because I've had other friends. I helped you, and I've had other people in the space be like, I want to do this. And after like a year, they're like, I'm only getting double-digit downloads and low double-digit, and I can't sell it as advertising spot. What do I do? I'm like, do you either quit or you keep going? I don't know what to tell you. I don't like you said, I've had to tell Todd before. I outline every episode I've ever done. And he'll sometimes go to like shows without me, the nerve, but he'll go to shows without me, and he'll network, which I love, and he'll be like, oh, we gotta get you on the show. And then he doesn't tell me until I see an email of where he's like, oh, so-and-so, this is Josh, we're going to have so-and-so on the show. And their role is, I have to email him directly and be like, I love that you're getting people on the show, but what's the premise of that episode, or what's the focus? Because if it's a technical writer for a pro brewery or for a like what are we having them on? They don't homebrew? Are they a pro brewer? Are we just pushing I just have to know. It's not as easy as like, yeah, I got someone on the show, now make it happen. No, there is a lot of thought that has to, otherwise, I mean, we would have, this show specifically would be a lot easier if it was just, hey, you want to be on the show? Okay, cool. Like even when I had you on, I was like, here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about this, and we're going to focus on your show and the news thing you're doing, blah, 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 as opposed to like, Kenny, you got an hour to spare? Just come on. As a guest, you'd probably hate that too. You'd be like, what are we talking about? Well, just the boys hanging out, just the boys. But
right.
No, yeah. When people tell me, yeah,
it's I have to do research on the brewery that I'm visiting. Like, I mean, I don't want to sound like an idiot when I go in there. Like, I kind of want to know if there are some big stories about them, or and then I'll try to do a quick pre-interview when we're there. But I also don't want to take up a ton of their time. You know what I mean? So it's tough. But I think that like all that preparation, when we're doing the podcast and you guys do the same thing, it seems organic. Like, as long as you don't sound like you're reading from a script, yep. And you know what I mean? Like, I certainly ask questions that sound like I'm reading from a script, but then when you kind of break off into that talk,
it's kind of
just flow,
Yeah. That's where I love the dynamic, because 95% of our shows are Q&A, me, Todd, and James. And I don't stress them. I send them the questions ahead of time in the voicemail. And Todd jokes, more times than not, he does listen, but a lot of the times he doesn't listen to or read the outline, because he wants to come in and be fresh. And I don't stress him about it because it does produce a very organic sort of response. Now, sometimes I will have to, my shtick of dragging out the question because I put this thought into why I included this question on the show. And it's this, long paragraph and I read it and Todd's answer is like, yes. I'm like, yeah, but what about this part, Todd? He's like, the answer is yes. Can we move on? Like, no, the show's 9 minutes. The show is only 9 minutes. What do you mean? But
I get it.
But I do. But I get like the pro of not stressing Todd and James with the prep is that they come in and just as the experts, and that's how they should be, and they can just take the questions and help the listeners. Where I don't mind taking on the role of producer, but then sometimes, like you said, having to remind Todd, or not just Todd. Todd really doesn't give me a hard time because he knows. But people who reach out and go, "I'm going to do a podcast too." I'm not a doom and gloom like you shouldn't do it, buddy. There's not enough room for all of us. No, there's room for everyone. Just know you're not going to make money for a very, very long time doing it. And if ever, and you have to, like, we at least are able to parlay it. It is a marketing tool for Tech Connection, ultimately, where we want this to be a branch of our customer service, where we're building a community, an authentic community that we care about and I'm interacting with and we're helping. And it's all this big smorgasbord, right? Of like if I'm not convinced I'd be able to do this show if it wasn't for the benevolence of Todd realizing the value. And I don't mean monetary necessarily as much as I mean there's value in connecting with people and value as in like, it makes us feel good. It's not just value. Like everyone who listens to the show could be a Tech Connection customer. It would be great, but I'm telling you, the vast majority are not. Unless all these downloads are all bots. I'm giving us the benefit of the doubt that all of our downloads are real people and Trub Club members. Not even all of our Trub Club members are customers of Tech Connection. So we obviously do it for the love of it. But yeah, it is crazy how some people will be like, well, Kenny, you do one, I could do one, it'll be nothing. And you're like, okay, have fun.
Yeah, I parlay mine into free beer at
I love it.
I mean, I've been given so much great free beer from breweries, just bottle releases that they didn't even release to the public yet. People appreciate that I've been told that they appreciate that I'm spreading the word about Ohio craft beer from these breweries. So I just do it because I love craft beer. I make a good living at my real job, and this is kind of a hobby, and it's fun. But like, if I had to quit, I could quit.
Yeah, if I had to, now you sound like me with breakfast cereal. I could quit anytime I want. I can. As my children are bawling in the kitchen because Daddy ate all the cereal and drank all the milk late last night. That happened.
You did ask me about highlights, and I will tell you, there's a couple of highlights this year. Has been a pretty big year for me because I've gotten some of the big Ohio craft breweries that are very, very popular. Fatheads is one, and Fatheads is they win GABF medals all the time. They've won best IPA at GABF. I mean, they beat West Coast breweries for IPA. That's how good their IPAs are. And I got to sit down with Matt Cole, who's the owner of and founder of Fatheads, and that guy was one of the smartest men I've ever met in my life. Especially he could talk about hops all day long. Another guy that I met and interviewed was a brewery in Fresno, Ohio called Woolly Pig Farm Brewery. And the guy that owns it actually used to brew for Uinta in Utah. And he traveled across Germany on a bicycle, stopping at pubs all along the way, different breweries.
He did the New Belgian thing.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. And the guy was crazy intelligent. And those are the interviews. I think you'll agree that when you have somebody on the show with you that is a good talker and smart and is actually saying stuff that makes sense and that people can digest, it makes for such an easier interview. Like, if you don't have to carry the interview as the host, that's great.
Yeah, and also though their passion comes through where it's also easier to consume as a listener. People like hearing people's authenticity and passion for things. And so, yeah, we frequently, the vast majority of guests we've ever had, these are people who are very knowledgeable in their field, and they're usually pretty passionate about it. where, even if it's something as silly as sanitizers for pro brewing and home brewing equipment, hearing someone who's really smart in the field that they do for a living, it's impressive. And as a listener, it's just like, oh, like even Horst Dornbush, people either loved or hated actually the episode about the shortage of grains and all that we did. I was sitting there just in awe. Like, this is like, I know I'm supposed to feel really depressed right now from all this information, but I didn't hear him talk about this forever. This is great. Yeah. The guy's we're actually trying to get Horst back for the alt challenge in October. I would love to have him come. He could take my place. We'll find actually, I'll tell him, Horst, I know you wrote the book on alt, but this is kind of my thing. But I would actually love to have him. But yeah, it does. It makes it for a much better interview when you're not having to pull teeth, right? Because I know we've talked before, and I've listened to sometimes every now and then it happens. You have to pull teeth from someone who's just not a talker.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've talked to people that are just, very short answers. And then I've gotten a chance to talk to like Dr. Charlie Bamforth. I mean, that guy.
The Pope of Foam.
Oh, yeah, man. He's
what they call him? The Pope of Foam?
Yeah, the Pope of Foam. That's right. Yeah. And he was really awesome. So, you take the good with the bad, and then you have the facts of life? I don't know.
And then the facts of life. Yeah, I'm too young for that. Old man. I gotta remind all y'all. I'm bald, but I'm young. Okay.
I want everybody. Listen, I don't do video, and I want everybody to know I am not 75 years old. I know my beard is white as hell, but I am 45, almost 45.
Yeah, but you do live in the North Pole.
I do. I'm real busy around December.
Yeah, that's why you can't brew. That's why you can't brew so much. Your main show, Pint Talking, 100 episodes. Congratulations. But let's talk. I think, we were saying how Pint Talking might be considered hyper local because it is about craft beer in Ohio. What I like though, and I say new, I think you're like on the 10th episode published of Style Files.
Actually, we're 25th is the 25th one was published. Was Cream Ale.
No
and
way.
Then I just recorded 4 more.
Wait, which one? I thought Kolsch was like number 10, and I feel like you just published that.
Kolsch was 23.
Oh, dude, I'm bad at math. Well, here's the problem though. You don't number them. That it's not my fault. You do the same feed. Either way, let me set it up and we'll talk about it. You launched a new show 25 episodes ago or 25 weeks ago, because it is a new weekly segment that you're doing. And it's not so hyper local. It's actually very broad, and it focuses on the various beer styles in the BJCP guidebook, and you're going through them, and you're getting, so it's called Style Files. You're getting commercial examples. You're sitting down with your buddy brewer, your brewing buddy. Actually, what does he do for a living? Is he he's a pro brewer?
He owns a brewery in Medina, which is just a few minutes from me.
Yeah. So you and a pro brewer are taking the time to dissect a style and discuss it. And the show, pretty short format, comparatively speaking.
30 to
45 minutes. You're discussing the pro style. Sometimes you've had like your own style before, like, or what you've brewed to compare as well, like with the Kolsch one. And so discuss Style Files. How did it come to be, and what's kind of your goal with this new weekly show that you've launched?
So Style Files originally was going to become a Patreon only show. I was going to do that. I was going to do longer episodes and then like segment a few for everybody. And then the main ones would just be for Patreon members. And then I was like, screw it. Let's get some more downloads. Let's just do 30-minute shows. Let's talk about these styles. We'll hit a different audience. We'll add not only to our current audience, but there'll actually be maybe some home brewers out there that'll listen, or there's some, people that are beer nerds and they want to listen to. And that is, for being a newer show, it's not getting as many downloads as Pint Talking, but I think that it's getting close. It's getting close, and I think it's been received pretty well. The goal with it, I don't know. There's a lot of categories to cover. I don't know that, by the time we get done with them, that maybe the BJCP will do another guideline and add some more styles. Or maybe we even spin off and start talking about, let's talk about malts, and let's talk about these hops, and let's talk about, you know what I mean? There's yeast. There's a lot of things we could talk about. It's going to take a little bit more research, probably even, but we'll see where it goes. But yeah, Style Files is fun. It's awesome because we can record 4 or 5 of them at one time, and then we put them out weekly on Wednesdays at 6 a.m.
You don't find doing them all at once by the last style, you're kind of inebriated?
Yes, we do find that. Because, and I'll tell you, last night we recorded 4 American wheat beer, which will come out next Wednesday, which I think I'll be past it. I don't know when this thing airs, but
it airs when I'm on vacation. So Thursday, was that the 14th? I don't know the date.
So yesterday, it'd be the 13th. So yesterday, the 12th.
Yes, yesterday.
My American wheat beer episode would have come out. And then we did American IPA, we did hazy IPA, and we did double IPA.
Whoa! You were schnockered by the end. I know
by
that.
The double IPA, you're going to hear some slurring in that audio.
Oh my gosh, dude! What were you thinking doing that many styles at one? Like for time, like you said, I'm a working man. I got to schedule this crap.
Well, so I work from home on Fridays, so we record these sometimes on a Thursday night, so it's okay if I sleep in a little bit.
I like it. I like it. Yeah, I work from home.
I've done a double. I think we did 4 episodes once of a Belgian double, triple, and there were definitely 8, 9, 10% beers. We did an imperial stout episode with like other stuff. Like, it was ridiculous, man.
Dude.
That 4th episode's always a nightmare.
Dude. Well, let me say, and again, we talk, we're friends. We've talked a gazillion times on the phone or private message. I think I like pint talking, but it is so hyper local sometimes. It's like, okay, realistically, I'm not going to try these beers. They're interesting. I like hearing the story. Style Files, I think that's where it's at for you and the show, because it is. You're going through the book. You're getting what. I mean, do you know before you get the commercial example if it's a good example of that style, or is this going in blind and being like, yeah? Because some of the episodes you taste are like, yeah, that hits the marks of what the book says it should be, this or that. So it gives me the impression that you're going in blind. Like, I got this, kolsch from this place, but I'm not actually quite sure if it is a good example. Let's just dissect that on this show. Or are you trying to go in with things you already know are good examples?
Yes and yes.
Yeah. So,
some of them are blind. Like, certainly when we did the Czech pale lagers and Czech dark lagers, I hadn't had any of those prior to, because we got them like they were Czechoslovakian or Czech Republic beers. There's some beers that we certainly have done that we had no idea what we were to expect. And then there's some that we pick, like for IPAs, we picked a couple that I knew were going to be good, solid examples of that. For the dry Irish stout, we picked Guinness. We knew what we were getting into. You know what I mean? So, it's fun to pick some that you're like, I've never had this, and we'll see what happens, And then you end up talking crap about some beers that, if it's bad, and you're like, well, they're never gonna like what I have to say about this.
Yeah, there is a brewery around us that I just say the brewery I won't name, but then I say the town it's in, and then everyone knows what I'm talking about. But I'd be willing to bet you $5 they don't listen to the show, so I'm in the clear. And someone's gonna go to their German master brewer and go, "Did you know, Hans, that the guy from the Homebrew Happy Hour does not like your show?" And he'll be like, "What is this Homebrew Happy Hour? I don't even care about them." And then I'll be like, "Yeah, you sound like my mom."
Hey, your German accent might be better than your British one.
What are you talking about, mate? Well, my accent's good, isn't it? No, I actually was getting better. I do over the top on purpose, but they would be around and I'd be like, he's a bit daft, isn't it? Or I would get better. But here's the one thing I want to apologize to the people of Muntons. I didn't know English people didn't say the C word that much. No, I'm kidding. I was just dropping it left and right. Like, no, that's what you guys do. I watch TV. No, I'm kidding. I did make that joke to them. I was like, we were sitting down at a bar the first night, and they're talking. You know, we have just really met these people in person, and I only knew 2 of them from Zoom calls. Our buddy Andrew, and we done plenty of Zoom calls with him and our buddy Kenneth, and but I'm sitting with the other workers who are all, they look probably 10 years younger than me. One of them may have been the same age, but I was like, you know, I just want to say thank y'all for your partnership, this or that. And I really admire your people's use of the C word. And I said it very deadpan, and they looked terrified. I was like, no, I'm kidding. I swear, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. In my head, I thought it'd be funny, and I'm kind of laughing, but y'all aren't laughing, so it's obviously not funny. I should have run that by my wife before I thought about saying it. I'm so sorry. And then the rest of the show was me trying to make up for that first foot in the mouth.
You just got to take the temperature of the room beforehand.
I'm bad at that, Kenny. You know that. I've told you before things and a smarter man would edit all this off the show, but I'm not. I've never been accused of being a smart man. But anyway, a lesson learned. It's Australians who really use that. And I should have known, because that's who I'm around, like rugby guys who train at various gyms I'll drop in at. And they say that word, like they drop the F-bomb and the C word like it's candy. Like they just don't even care. And so I'm like, oh, all foreigners do this. Okay. No, they don't.
Well, it makes more sense than I was going to say that your English accent kind of sounds like a Australian hybrid.
It did, didn't it? Yeah. Dingo ate my baby. Yeah.
I don't know that they say mate a lot in the UK.
Mate. I don't know. I ended up saying pardon a lot. I heard one of them say pardon, and I was like, oh, pardon. And then one of them did, I think the actual most I offended one of them. I was on Saturday, we were packing up the booth, and I was sweating profusely, and I needed water. I was parched. I hadn't had any water. And he was like, would you like a bottle of water? And I go, a bottle of water? Like and yeah, he was ready to go back home and get away from me. It was.
Isn't it ridiculous how well they do our accent, but we like in the movies?
Theirs. Yeah, I can't do theirs. My life depended on it. Yeah, I blame my speech impediment, and my wife's like, that's not how that works. I'm like, shut up, lady. What do you know? But anyways, back to this and wrapping it up, because I do appreciate your time, and I know you're busy, and thank you for making the time. We were supposed to do it a couple days ago, and then I flaked on you because I was up at headquarters. I forgot, like I had to do a day trip to headquarters. Did you hear about that disaster? Did you see? Oh, you're not at the recipe receiving level of Trub Club. We had a weevil infestation.
Oh no!
Yeah, so we had to clear it out. We're getting new grains. I cannot ship recipes with weevils in good conscience. If it was my own beer, I'd freeze it, kill them, and then brew with them with the extra protein. I wouldn't mind that. I can't do that to people in the Chub Club. So we're getting fresh grains. Their June kit Belma is going out, and anyone who's also getting the alt beer, they'll probably go out at the exact same time. So, but yeah, that's why I went up that Wednesday. I was like, I'm going to do recipes and get caught up, and everyone's Kolsch Cup stuff will go out. Kolsch Cup stuff did go out. All the scorecards, all the shirts. Yours is in the mail, buddy. It should get to you Monday. I don't know if it went out Wednesday and it's USPS. Maybe even Sunday if y'all have Sunday delivery in your area.
Probably, maybe Saturday or Monday.
Yeah. So let me know when you get it. Anyone listening, I would love to see you tag us on Instagram or Threads or whatever platforms exist now. There's a gazillion of them now. Tag us with your shirts and all that, because I'm really happy with how the shirts came out this year. But anyway, the weevils set it back, and then you're like, "Hey man, we still on for tonight?" And I'm like, halfway from cleaning this weevil infested area, I'm like, oh bro, I totally forgot that was today. So I appreciate you rescheduling the time. Where can people find information about the Brewer of Seville? What platforms is your show on? Because I know you don't do YouTube. I think you're on everywhere else that audio listeners can go. And then plug your Patreon for people who want to learn more how they can connect with your community.
So you can get all the old episodes at thebrewerofseville.com. You can follow me on Facebook and Instagram at the Brewer of Seville. I don't do much Instagram posting. I don't like the way they've changed their platform to just do all videos. I'm too much of a boomer, I guess, for that.
Boomer.
So you can also, as far as listening, the major ones, like you said, Spotify, iHeart, Apple, Google. I am not on YouTube yet. I have discussed this with my buddy Bob about doing style files maybe in a video realm at some point. I don't know that Pint Talking will ever be video because I go out to the breweries and I don't want to set up cameras and stuff out there. But it's possible that Style Files could eventually go into a video realm as well.
It would lend itself well, dude. It would lend itself well, being able to show people and all that.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, you could say, look how bright this beer is. Look how, look at this amber colored beer, copper colored or whatever, And then the Patreon is patreon.com/Pint Talking Pint Club. We give away free beer every month, a 6-pack to somebody. I do ad-free and early release content of my shows. We also do an extra episode per month called the Power Hour. And that's really just me and Bob drinking for an hour, which usually ends up being 90 minutes. And then we're really sloshed by the end, and we're talking about some of the dumbest stuff
ever.
And last one we did actually was just last week, I think, and we got to the 90-minute mark. I'm like, let's just end this thing.
Yeah,
we were so slow.
Yeah.
It was so bad. It was so bad.
Yeah. Well,
but yeah, that's where you can get that. There's I have 3 tiers. I think it's $5, $10, and $20. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And brewerofseville.com. The brewer or just brewer?
It is. Let me go to my website.
I was going to say, because I always forget. It's like when people do, you looked it up and I'll stall. People do kegconnections.com and then it redirects to Kegworks. We are not affiliated with them. We get so many calls any given week or month. Hey, I order number Z244. Like, first off, we have no letters in our. You went to Keg Connections, didn't you? Yeah, isn't that y'all? No, it's not. But what is your website? So
it's actually the brewerseville.com. However, I did buy another domain. There was a brewery here in Cleveland that got bought out by AB InBev a few years back, and I've always talked a lot of crap about this brewery. For some reason, they didn't protect their domain, so it was Platform Beer Company, and I bought platformbrewingcompany.com because they didn't protect that. They went out of business 2 days later, and I was like, I am taking credit for slaying the beast.
Yeah, obviously, duh. Yeah, we're responsible for family deaths. We're responsible for COVID. You're responsible for the death of this brewery and the release of this episode. God knows the damage we're going to do, Kenny, when this hits publish in 1 week. Or not even.
We might have
5
opened Pandora's box.
Yeah. If anything really bad happens, we can't do a show together ever again. But I'd love to do your show sometime.
Absolutely. You should come on our Power Hour and we'll just do it.
There we go. There we go. Power Hour. Kenny, my friend, thank you so much for your time, buddy. I really do appreciate it. Especially, I had to get an episode during vacation, and you really pulled through for me, so I appreciate it. Everyone, check him out at the Brewer of Seville on socials. Like he said, you get on YouTube, man. It'll benefit you. And then check out his Patreon and Pint Talking. Congrats on 100th episode. All that jazz. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, buddy.
And that will do it for this episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. If you have a question you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on that submit a question link at the top of the page, or even better, call and leave a voicemail and be Todd's best friend at 325-305-6107. Thank you to our sponsors like Munton's Malt, premium grains for a better brew day. If you aren't already brewing with Munton's Malt, give them a try by joining our Trub Club at a recipe receiving level. For the best hops available online, give our friends at hopsdirect.com a visit and pick up what you need for your next brew day. Also, get a pack of Imperial yeast along with premium recipes from us when you join the Trub Club. Go to patreon.com/homebrew happy hour and come brew with us. On behalf of the absent Todd Burns, the absent James Carlson, and the Pearl Media Network, I'm Joshua Stubing. Thanks for listening.